Before the movie begins, Frederick Mannion shot and killed the innkeeper Barney Quill. 1 hour after the Mannion's wife Laura arrives home, views saying that the Quill raped and beat her in the woods. The district attorney is going to prosecute Mannion to defend him.
After Mannion shot him, he drove back to his house trailer where he awakened the deputized caretaker of the trailer park and told him he had shot Quill.
What's your experience as a defense lawyer?
Not very much.
How do I know you can handle my case?
Well, I guess you don't know. Shall we talk about it?
I suppose so.
You work at the Thunder Bay Inn, don't you, Mr. Paquette?
I'm bartender there.
Were you working on the night that Barney Quill was shot by Frederick Mannion?
I was.
Were you witness to the shooting?
I was.
In this scene, the prosecution has brought the witness who is the manager of the bar. So, the party, that is prosecution in this case, has called the witness and he will examine the witness, and this is called examination in chief. This has been defined under section 137 of the Evidence Act 1872.
Well, did you see Mrs. Mannion in the bar that night?
She was there.
Did Barney Quill leave the bar that night?
Yes.
After the completion of examination in chief, the opposite party, that is defendant in this case, is going to take over the witness and cross-question him about the previous answers. The cross-examination is defined under section 137 of the Indian Evidence Act 1872.
In this scene, after being already examined, the prosecution is again asking him questions. This process is called re-examination, and which has also been given under section 137 of Evidence Act 1872. Also, if any new fact or issue arises during the re-examination, the opposite party can further cross-examine the witness on that fact or issue.
Death, in my opinion, was almost instantaneous and was directly caused by this wound.
Dr. Rashid, may I have your detailed report?
Certainly.
I ask that this report be marked People's Exhibit 1 for identification.
The document produced before the court as evidence are the documentary evidence. It is statements submitted through the documents. The provisions related to the documentary evidence has been defined under section 61 to 66 of the Indian Evidence Act. The document produced before the court should be supported by primary and secondary evidence.
Now, the primary evidence has been defined under section 62 of the Indian Evidence Act, and it means that the original documents were itself produced before the court. Secondary evidence has been defined under section 63 of the Act, and it is certified copy of the evidence.
Formed an opinion as to Frederick Mannion's mental and emotional state at the time he killed Barney Quill.
I have.
And what is that opinion?
He was temporarily insane at the time of the shooting.
Lieutenant Mannion's claim that he was temporarily insane when he shot Barney Quill. Section 45 to 51 of the Act talks about expert opinion. This section is applied when the court has to form opinion upon law or science. The defense presents an army psychiatrist who testifies that Mannion was temporarily insane and suffered from dissociative reaction at the time of shooting. However, the expert under this section cannot state a decision but can only present their opinion and
Explain
explanation.
Frederick Mannion's temporary insanity.
It is known as dissociative reaction, a psychic shock.
Did your husband know you were going?
Not always. He goes to sleep early, and sometimes I'm restless.
Where did you go on these occasions?
Oh, I take a walk by the lake or went to the bingo place. Maybe to the inn.
You ever go to meet another man?
No, I didn't. I never did that.
The prosecutor's factual theory is that the victim Barney Quill did not rape Mrs. Mannion. Rather, they were lovers. He elicits evidence from Mrs. Mannion that she must have had an affair with Quill, and the context of these questions suggests that the prosecutor is attacking Mrs. Mannion's sexual character. Section 53A under Indian Evidence Act provides that the evidence of character or previous sexual experiences are not relevant in cases of prosecution under certain cases of rape, and further, Section 146 makes these kind of questions irrelevant. It is totally misogynistic in today's world. to believe that simply if a woman has been in multiple relationships and multiple kind of past sexual experiences she has had, then she is of easy virtue and thus her consent can be easily obtained.
Now,
How was she dressed?
she had on a real tight skirt and sweater kind of thing, sort of glued on. She was wearing a pair of red shoes with high heels.
Or was she wearing hose of that hat?
Well, we'd be very happy to show the court Miss Mannion's hair. Miss Mannion, would you take off your hat, please?
Mr. Miller.
Another example
Are you
for the
certain that
provision
Lieutenant Manning
regarding
said,
previous character
"I've got a
in this
big
movie
bus
is
That's what he said.
Mr. Miller, did Lieutenant Mannion say anything else?
Yes, sir. He said when he got out, the first thing he was going to do was to kick that bitch from here to Kingdom Come.
To whom was he referring?
And how many other offenses have you committed?
Well, I was in reform school when I was a kid, but that's all.
Your Honor, I'd like to see this man's criminal record.
One of the shortcomings, which in our opinion was prominent in the movie, was the lack of personal knowledge as to why Mannion acted as he did. Character was trying to establish pattern of violent and jealous rages, but it was improper to prove character by specific acts.
Proceed, Mr. Clerk.
The members of the jury, have you agreed upon a verdict? And if so, who will speak for you?
We have. I'm the foreman.
The defendant will rise.
What is your verdict?
We find the defendant not guilty by reason of insanity.
To remove justice from the equation. The case itself is ambiguous. Clearly, it was a revenge killing, but revenge is no justification for murder. Preminger challenges that sympathy by making Mannion generally unlikable, even cruel. The rape itself is never shown, the murder victim and the alleged rapist is never introduced, and Preminger adds doubt by making Laura flirty and clearly unhappy in her marriage.
What's more, it's made very obvious that Biegler is not interested in the case for its moral content, but for the legal challenge that it represents. That keeps us from identifying too strongly. It's trying to carve out a story from the evidence. The prosecution wants the jury to see the murder, and the defense wants the jury to see the rape. The prosecution wants to show the act, the defense wants the audience to see the motive. Prosecution tries to paint Laura Mannion as promiscuous, but Biegler drills down into the vocabulary to show that suggestion from a different linguistic point of view. The movie about murder trial transformed into a granular study about construction of stories.